Hello, this video is to help you understand how to do this assignment. Factors Influencing Climate Lab. This assignment is important for you to understand in order to do well on the assessment for this unit. It has you take a look at the factors that influence climate and apply them to new situations. So the first page has objectives, but the main thing I would like to direct your attention to are the 5 factors that affect climate. We've learned these in class before. One of them is a slightly different terminology. Latitude, height, how far above, north or south of the equator you are. Elevation, how far you are above or below sea level. Closeness to a large body of water. Orographic effect, or graphic, is defined by relating to mountains and ocean currents. So the first thing we're going to do, go ahead and read the directions below. I'm not going to read them all to you. Feel free to pause this video as needed. As you turn the page, you'll see 2 columns of factors that influence climate. And the first one refers to how these factors affect temperature. So let's talk about latitude. Latitude, this is how far north or south of the equator you are. As latitude increases, so as you move from the equator, either north or south, your average temperature would decrease. Latitude, referring to precipitation, is a little more complicated. This refers to different latitudes on Earth. At the equator, 0 degrees latitude, and at 60 degrees north and south, you tend to have heavy precipitation. This has to do with the occurrence of low pressure belts in these areas. Whereas at 30 degrees north, that is about Miami, Florida's latitude, and 90 degrees north and south. These are climates that tend to be dry. So 0 and 60 are wet, 30 and 90 are dry. Next, proximity, which means how close something is to land or water. If you're at the center of a landmass, you tend to have a wider range of temperatures, whereas nearness to a large body of water tends to moderate your temperatures, meaning you have a smaller range in temperature. Proximity to land or water, referring to precipitation. Areas in the center of a landmass tend to be drier than areas near bodies of water. Should make sense. Next, location near a mountain range, referring to temperature. Windward sides, these are the sides that the prevailing winds would hit. They tend to be cool, while leeward sides are warm. Windward sides, referring to precipitation. Windward sides tend to have more precipitation, while leeward sides tend to have less. And finally, ocean currents, referring to temperature. Warm ocean currents tend to warm the eastern coasts of continents, including the United States, while cool ocean currents tend to cool the western coast of continents, including the United States. And then prevailing wind direction, affecting precipitation. Wind direction determines the windward and leeward sides of the mountain. You can see in this diagram, this is a mountain. The prevailing winds hit the windward side of the mountain. This causes cooler, wetter conditions on the windward side. And then this is as the air is pushed upward, causing it to cool, causing moisture in the air to condense and form rain. So when that air then comes down the other side, it's dry. So warmer, drier conditions on what's called the leeward side. Okay. Pre-lab questions. The 5 factors can be found on the front page. And you should determine 2 factors that affect Burnsville. Again, feel free to pause this as needed. Next, we have a U.S. map, and you're going to be asked questions about comparing different locations. So when asked about different locations, please keep in mind, I want you to look at the locations and see what do they have in common and what differentiates them. So the first question refers to, right down here, compare the temperature and humidity of locations A and B. Okay. Location A and B are at approximately the same latitude. A is on the coast, B is inland. But the main idea for A and B is the mountains in between. The prevailing winds are coming from the west-northwest, and so understand A is on the windward side, B is on the leeward side. So knowing that, you should always refer back to your information. And we're talking about location near mountain ranges. How does being on the windward side affect your temperature and precipitation compared to the leeward side? You should be able to answer question A. Question B refers to locations A and C. Okay, they're both on the coast. So what's different about them? Don't worry too much about the mountain range here. Instead, let's focus on latitude. Okay, A is at a higher latitude than C, so refer back to the information about that to answer question B. Okay, question C. You're comparing locations C and D. If you look at location C and D, they're approximately the same latitude. We don't know anything about their elevation. I don't see any mountains around, so let's focus on proximity to an ocean, a large body of water for C, and being in the center of a continent for D. So you should determine which one, what the factor that affects it is, which, and then which location will have more extreme temperature. The last page in this section has you compare locations A, B, and F. They're at the same what, but F is at a higher what. Okay. A, B, and F. Okay, they're all approximately the same latitude. Letter F is shown at the top of a mountain. Letter E, question E says compare location D and F. What two factors result in location F's being a colder climate? So here we're comparing location D and F. So what two factors differentiate those where F would be colder than D? Question F compares location C and E. Location C is influenced by a what current, while location E is influenced by a what current, right? So remember, C is over here on the west coast of a continent. E is over here on the east coast. Refer back to our lesson on currents if you need help with that. Letter G, compare locations D and location E. Examine the graph below and determine which graph of average monthly temperature matches which location. So in the box, you have one, the solid line shows a large range in temperatures. This is average monthly temperature, and this shows December through December, January, February, March. The dotted line shows another range of temperatures. So which one would be location D and which one would be location E? D is in the center of a continent, E is on the coast. The next section of this deals with a fictitious island just called Climate Island. Now you'll see that we have latitudes listed on the left, and this will refer to the pressure belts that were discussed in the latitude affecting precipitation. We learned that equatorial areas and areas at 60 degrees north and south tend to have more rain. They have low pressure belts, which indicate more storms, whereas 30 degrees north and south, as well as polar areas, tend to be dry. We have position A, which is in the center of a continent at a dry area, which is 30 degrees north. Location B, which is near the coast. C and D are on opposite sides of a mountain range. One is on the coast and one is inland. The prevailing winds would be going this direction. And down here, location F is in the mountains. so high elevation. Okay. Location E is near the equator. So hopefully that information, and the arrows represent the prevailing winds. Use that island to answer the questions on the next page. What major factor caused location F to have a colder yearly climate than any other location? What 3 factors cause location E to have the greatest annual rainfall? When asked about factors, remember, go back to the front page and use the 5 factors listed. Okay, continue through these, applying them to Climate Island, and we end with what are called Regents questions. You can think of Regents questions as ACT type questions, and so these refer to actual situations, such as Mount Kilimanjaro is located in eastern Africa at 3 degrees south. What climate factor best explains the presence of permanent snow on its peak? It's very near the equator, but it has snow. Number 2, which climate condition generally results from both an increase in distance from the equator and increase in elevation? So what climate condition would result from increasing your distance from the equator and increasing your elevation above sea level? The next one shows a map of Australia, and it says, base your answer to the question on the map of Australia below and on your knowledge of Earth science. Points A and D. So we have A right here, and D is over here. Okay. They represent different locations on the continent. And so we have prevailing winds going this direction. D is on the windward side. C is on the leeward side. Okay. There's C right there. It says the cross section represents a mountain between C and D in the direction of prevailing winds. Explain why D is wetter than C. And on the next page, base your answer to the question on the map below and on your knowledge of Earth science. The map shows an imaginary continent on a planet that has climate conditions similar to Earth. The continent is surrounded by oceans. Point A through D represent locations on the continent. Identify the primary factor that causes location C to have a colder climate than D. So here's C. It's on the equator, but in the mountains. Location D is on the equator, but not in the mountains. All right. The last page. Base your answer to question 5 and 6 on the map below and your knowledge of Earth science. The map shows the locations of the Coast Range and Cascade Range in the Pacific Northwest. Here's the Coast Range, and here's the Cascade Range. These are mountain ranges. We have Long Beach and Richland. Explain why the difference between the average winter and summer temperatures is smaller. So why is the difference between average winter and summer temperatures smaller? That means that there's a smaller range between them, so a more moderate climate for Long Beach compared to Richland. And then identify the name of the cool surface ocean current that influences the climate of this region. Okay, you could certainly look that up, but we learned that there's a current right here. And if you know the name of that one, okay. Hopefully that helps you with this packet. I'm going to stop the recording and review this packet and make sure you understand all of the concepts for your assessment on this unit.